साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। विघ्नेशानमुनिगुंसस्मरुहि लक्ष्मीसुहागादिवे आम्ही कुन्तवन्मुखशास्त्रशिखया हे सत्य आरंभिले हे मा स्थावर आणि जंगम कधी कोठे किती गुंतवू चर्चा मंथन तज्ञ बोधूनता हे प्रश्नही सोडवू ठेवी भाग सुवर्ण पोस्ट अथवा रोखी तसे पंडते वृद्धी भांडवली मिळो कर नको पर्याय हो कोणते कोठे उत्तम रोखता सुगमता लाभांश हा व्याजही कोठे गुंतविणे सुरक्षित असे नोंदीस कैसी वही सन्मागे धन संपदा मिळविणे अत्यंत आवश्यक पैसा ध्येय नसे म्हणून जपणे जाणीव सामाजिक ज्ञानाचा उपयोग गुंतवणुकी साठी सदा होऊ दे हे सारे समजावया सुमती दे आम्हास तू शारदे.
Good morning, all. So today's topic is about common grievances of investors. All of us are quite familiar here, and we've been always attending sessions on how to be investing and how to maximize our ROI. But many times we come across several difficulties when we are executing our transactions or post the transactions are executed. And we may have grievances against the market intermediaries like the trading member or the companies with whom we are doing our investments. We have Mr. Abhijit Pai from BSc to give us an insight into how to deal with investor grievances and how should we approach those, what are the kinds of investor grievances we may come across and how you can overcome them. So before I go into the details, let me just do a brief introduction. Mr. Abhijit Pai is a DGM, Investor Services and Membership Compliance, BSc Limited. He is a BTech in Electrical Engineering and Masters of Management from Shailesh J. Mehta School of Management. In the current role, Abhijit is responsible for managing various activities under the ambit of investor services, which include a resolution of complaints against trading members, listed companies, and including settlement of claims against a defaulter trading member. He is also responsible for the membership compliance department. In his previous role in BSc, he has worked in listing compliance department, where he was responsible for monitoring day-to-day compliance for a company, resolving regulatory queries, periodic regulatory reporting, and so on and so forth. He was also involved in various automation initiatives in compliance process, including implementation of XBLR and corporate announcement filing system. He has worked in the information products department and has extensively interacted with users of trading and compliance data. With that brief introduction, I will welcome Mr. Abhijit Pai to the dais. Before we proceed with the session, I would request Mr. Uday Tardalkar to hand over the memento. Yeah. Over to you, Mr. Abhijit Pai.
I'm audible? So this is one habit which everyone has got after the discussions and all. So am I audible? Is this? So I've been given a very interesting topic, kind of say what are the types of common complaints that we receive. So as a human nature, I don't know whether we have it, की कुठेतरी चुका शोधायच्या. So finding this thing. So we have a grievance. So sometimes when everything is going good, we don't have a grievance. But when especially in the investing scenario, when you start getting some, say, you are making a profit over the years, and suddenly you say, ki, I was making, say, 10% profit in my trading this thing, and suddenly I have started losing. So you get a grievance. So if you are a good investor, you will find, okay, the market is going down, so probably my this thing. But there are some people who say, no, I have a grievance, the broker is cheating me. These are the kind of, say, some of the investors who come back. So if I put the whole grievances, I can classify in 2 or 3 ways. The first one is grievance against a company, grievance against a trading member. So grievance against a trading member are more frequent if you say whoever is trading. Grievance against a company is on a very limited scale, but when they are, you will probably get a single type of, say, grievance from multiple people. So like, say, one of the example I can say, I'm starting with a company related because those are more interesting ones where you'll see, and there you need to be some basic concepts which I want to introduce here, especially because these have come in the recent past. The first thing is the most common grievances. I have not received my dividend. So this typically happens when you are, because now the recent regulations mandate that it has to be sent through the electronic mode. In case your account number is not populated in the depository, then these the companies or the RTS find it difficult to send it out to you. So they have to send out a check and check to your registered address. Sometimes you have changed the address but not recorded it in the DP. So there is a possibility that you will not receive the dividend. So such kind of grievances do come in. But those have reduced significantly since the massive dematerialization and all. But the next is, especially when we see this about a bonus. Now, what typically happens in a bonus scenario is, if there is what we call typically a record date in a bonus scenario. So a company declares that whoever is a shareholder on, say, so-and-so date is eligible for the bonus. And from next day, it will trade X bonus. The concept X and come is till the date it is come. You will get if you are shareholder on that day, you get the benefit. The moment it starts trading X bonus means the benefit has been given to the shareholders who are on that date, and now you will not receive the bonus, receive the benefits of that. So typically in a bonus scenario, if the bonus has been given 1:1, 1:1 is one bonus share for one share you hold. And if the market price of that share is 100 rupees, when it becomes X, it becomes 50 rupees. Now, even if they find that, okay, this person is eligible as on date, but that bonus shares will be credited after certain days. There is a limitation, there is a period given to the companies to complete the process of bonus. But the price already becomes half. So people who don't understand, how did my price suddenly become half, but I have the same number of shares. So this is one kind of scenario, and we get typically complaints around this. Especially if for some reason the process of this bonus crediting to the account and then getting it listed gets delayed. So then we see a sudden rise in the number of complaints. So there was, I think, last year there was one company which actually had this issue. They had some internal issues, and suddenly we get some 100, 200 complaints just about this company. So this is one kind of scenario. There are some people who are not aware that once the bonus you get, the price reduces and you will get it after some. So they will wait for 2 or 3 days and then suddenly say, my portfolio value was, say, 10,000 rupees and it has become suddenly 5,000 and I am in a big loss. So then this is the explanation part that we as an exchange do, or we get it from the company. So I'm coming back to this kind of. So as an exchange, our role is kind of say a mediator between the investor and the company or the trading member. So as a exchange, we have to facilitate, we have to give equal. And especially what happens is an investor alone, if he's a small investor, he doesn't have so much of power, if you say. If he's an investor like say LIC, they can go and fight in the court. But as an investor, individual investor, what is their strength? Can he go and fight in the court? Can they, this thing? His investment is say 10,000. Can he afford the fees of it? So that's where the exchange comes in. So typically, the first thing as an, when you handle a grievance, means you have a grievance. The first thing is you have to try to find out what actually has happened in that. And once you if you are not able to understand, you have the exchange to your help. I'll continue with the company this thing. The next type of grievance that has become more frequent now is the rights entitlement. Now, this is earlier rights entitlement, say around about till up to 2019, 2020, when there was a rights issue. They used to send a form at your home, at your registered address. And you have to fill in the form. Say, if you have a rights, you have been assigned rights of say 50 rights shares are there. You get, you have to deposit a check against that at the designated bank branches or the offices, and you will be allocated the rights issue. Since 2000, especially I think May 2020, incidentally Reliance was the first rights issue, which went on what we call the rights entitlement in dematerialized form. So what happens is this the rights entitlement earlier, which used to come in a physical paper form, it now comes directly gets credited to your depository account. The proportionate, whatever rights entitlement, they get deposited to your account. Now when they are, now even the second thing what has started is, it is now easily tradable. Earlier also it was tradable, but it was not so prevalent because it was in a physical form. It is difficult to trade in physical these days. So they said ki, now what people do is, they buy this rights entitlement. Say if in the market they say, I'll buy 100, they buy 100 rights entitlement. But that you will not get those shares until you actually deposit the money against those entitlements. Many people don't realize that I have only bought a right to acquire the shares, not the shares. And these rights entitlement are kind of say have a auto expiry. So there is a subscription date. Post that subscription date, this rights entitlement are extinguished automatically if you do not subscribe to them. So this is one type of grievance which has become more frequent. So we had initiated a campaign as well through the brokers that if you are buying a rights entitlement, until and unless you subscribe to that, you will not get the shares. So whatever, it's kind of say if you are buying a rights entitlement and not subscribing to that, you are practically losing your money. So that is one thing which has come of late a more so education is one thing, like say not only seminars like this, but a public mouth to mouth also would be helpful. And the more critical one, which has more become say more prevalent since 2016 or 17, that is the companies which are going into insolvency resolution. So some of the more famous examples in insolvency is maybe Videocon is there. You have DHFL, then Bhushan Steel, all these kind of companies. Now what happens is when a company cannot pay off its debts, it becomes insolvent. And one of the creditors, like say typically a bank, it goes to the NCLT, National Company Law Tribunal, relevant bench, and says, I want to take this company to insolvency and bankruptcy framework. Once a company is put into that, for short it is IBC framework, a professional who is called resolution professional is typically a CA, CS or ICD. There are certain qualifications. So he has to be authorized as a resolution professional, registered as a resolution professional. There are certain qualifications. He has to also have certain prior exams and all. And then once he is appointed as a resolution, now the resolution professional becomes in charge of that company. The management of the company loses its power. Practically, the board becomes defunct. So resolution professional is kind of, say, the whole and soul of the company. And his activities are governed by something called the Committee of Creditors. Now, this Committee of Creditors is kind of, if you put it in equivalent terms, the resolution professional acts as a CEO and the Committee of Creditors will act as a board. And there, the power that Committee of Creditors has is in the proportion of the debt they hold in the company. So if the total debt is 1,000 crores and one bank is holding, one bank has given a 500 crore loan. So it will have 50% share of the voting rights. So this way, they have a very strict timelines. So within that period, they have to complete the whole process. 180 days and then additional 90 days. So within this time, they have to complete the process of resolution. Typically, what happens in a resolution is they will invite bids from for resolving the loan. What do you mean by resolving a loan? So that new bidder, whoever comes in, he comes in with a plan. He says, I will take over this company for, say, and I will bring in this much amount of money. With this much amount of money, the existing creditors, I will pay off this much. To the workers, I will pay this much. To this kind of creditors, I will pay this much. And in some exceptional cases, the bidders say, I will pay the non-promoter shareholders this X amount. Say, if they are holding 100 shares, I will pay them, say, rupees 5 per share. That's, I'm giving a more example. But in many cases of late, the bidders don't offer anything. Because in practical, the company is worth in negative. In fact, one of the examples recent, in the initial this thing, one bidder had come in and said, this company we have taken over. We are aware that this company's value is zero if you minus the debt. But still, we as a bidder, we want to have our kind of, say, our reputation. It's a reputed company, so our reputation is stake. So we are paying off something which is a nominal, per se they are not. So these are the, now this kind of, say, complaint comes in. I have taken, I had a share in one of those company, this company. Now its value is zero. So these kind of complaints have become more frequent as of now because earlier bidders, they used to give something to the minority shareholders. Promoters' shareholding is by default wiped out by everyone, every bidder that we have seen. But many of the bidders have now said, we will wipe off the entire share capital. We'll make it zero and we'll bring in our capital, we'll delist the company. So in those cases, the minority shareholder comes in. He says, I'm not getting any money, I have lost everything. So, but the framework allows for that. This is a framework which has been in place. It is approved by the judiciary also. And this, the whole framework is kind of, say, a logical this thing. If you see a theory of firm, what we call, when you are an equity shareholder of a company, you have the last right over the rights of the company. So you have to pay off all your dues, and if something is remain, then you will get it proportionately. In a bankrupt company, the shareholder has to lose everything, but there are some kind bidders who give this. So this is one frequent kind of complaints that we get. Again, there is a great amount of awareness that has come in many of the investors. We have got very smart investors who are able to look at the vast amount of data which is publicly available, especially in the, say, various websites. In fact, the richest data is available on our website itself. So they are able to see the frequent filings that every critical announcement has to be published with first to the exchange and then to everyone. Then we have financial results which come on a quarterly basis. There's something called corporate governance report which is to be published on a quarterly basis. So putting it one and one together, now people have become smart. They pick up all these minor things and then they file complaints like, say, so-and-so company, the management is not functioning well. It is kind of, say, swindling the money. Now, these kind of complaints are very critical to, means it's kind of, say, tough for us also to analyze, because sometimes, and more often than not, there are some insiders who come and say, ki, so-and-so has an issue with the company and he is swindling. 50% of the times they are true, but remaining 50% is something which is a problem. But we'll still have to resolve those issues. But nevertheless, I appreciate that many of the investors are actually looking at the company in which they are investing. They are not investing on basis of that uncle of my friend told me that you invest in so-and-so company and you will get 100%. They look at the company, they are investing with a, this is a heartening part. Now I go to the other part of my complaints that are received against trading members. And there is a subtype within that, that complaints concerning to mutual funds. Because BSE, as you may be aware, that BSE runs a BSE Star MF platform, which is the biggest aggregator platform for investing in mutual funds. So almost 70 to 80% of mutual funds investment, which goes from through such aggregators, like say BSE is there, NSE is there, there is something called MF Utilities, and there are 2-3. So that is channelized through BSE Star MF. So it's a seamless. You earlier there was something called the pool mechanism. So you go to in the same screen as you have a say broker like Zerodha. He allows you facility to trade in stocks. Similarly, they in the same interface you can invest in mutual funds. So in mutual funds, earlier they had a facility that you pay to the broker and then broker relays the order and passes on the money to the exchange. Since July, there is a change in the mechanism. The money should come directly to the clearing corporation of the exchange. So every settlement of, so the exchange does the trading part. So we'll match the buying and selling. But actual settlement, so delivery of the shares and the delivery of the money emanating out of that is done by the clearing corporation. So since July, the money to be invested in mutual funds is coming to the clearing corporation directly. Now, due to that, what has the problem which arose is that many the money came into the exchange in the clearing corporation account, but it was unidentified. Because earlier, what used to happen? So, if a broker is there, he's saying this is the money, and these are the people who have paid that money to buy this. The money is coming from one route, the information is coming from another. So that gave rise to many sorts of complaints, like say because that identification was delayed, and there was another party which came in, that is a payment aggregator, like say Razorpay and all. So even their identification, there some problems arose into the whole thing. So now that has been smoothened out. But the first 5-6 months was a phase of trouble for almost everyone, from the members to the exchange to the clearing corporation, everyone this thing. And some of the investors, unfortunately, they had delay in say receiving their refunds or delay in allotment of. So that is one problem which will get resolved eventually. And in fact, based on this experience, maybe there is even a discussion paper which has come in, which says the funds which you are giving to the broker as of now for buying any shares or say margin money, that funds has to come directly to the clearing corporation. So in a way that I'll come to the next set of frequent complaint, which gets addressed by this proposed mechanism. A similar mechanism exists for the shares as well. Earlier, say around 3 or 4 years ago, whenever you carry out a trade you are buying some shares or selling some shares, you have to deposit the money with the broker. If you are selling shares, you have to deposit the shares with the broker. And many a times, especially the most famous example is the Carvey, that these brokers had something called POA, right to access your account, demat account, and get the shares from you. That was a facility only for settlement purpose. But that was misused by many brokers just to get the shares transferred into their account, use it for whatever purposes they want, and kind of swindle the money. Like say Carvey did was took shares from many of these investors, and then they pledged it and then passed on the money to a lot of them. So now to address that, a mechanism is there that the shares will remain in your account. It will just be pledged, and that too for a specific purpose. And the broker, if they want, they can repledge it, but to the clearing corporation. So that way you have whole chain. The shares remain in your account, you get your benefits. If any say dividend or bonus, whatever corporate action is there, it is credited, it will be directly in your account. It doesn't go to the broker's account. So that is one mechanism which has been put. So this was a complaint that I did not get my shares, or my shares were illegally transferred. They took away my shares and I'm kind of said. So that has been addressed to a greater level. So the next step is similar step is being taken for the cash thing, but it's a proposal as of now. It's a discussion paper. So once the discussion, maybe typically what we see is once the discussion papers comes in a few months, it will get slowly implemented or say implemented. So that way we are making our markets more safer. The next kind of complaint which comes is unauthorized trade. Now this is a very serious matter, and this is where an investor has to be very, very careful in this. So what we have seen is in many complaints, it comes that the broker has conducted illegal trades or say unauthorized trades in my account. How is a trade typically booked? So there are 2 or 3 ways. One is the traditional method of call and trade. So there is a specified numbers given by the brokers. Okay, so and so, you can call on so and so number. You tell you have to buy so many shares, say at this price or say market rate or whatever. You give your instructions. The broker has to mandatorily record this conversation, and it has to be kept in record for certain period of time. So in case any investor complains, the broker has to present that. See, this is the instruction which has been given by the investor over the call, and I have executed that instruction as is. If he is able to prove, he is kind of say more safe. But in many cases, what happens, what we have seen is, and typically and in fact, investors themselves write this, I was not very comfortable with the e-trading, say online trading or mobile trading or screen-based trading. So I gave my password and ID to a so-and-so person of the broker, and he carried out trades in my account. So it's like, say, I put it in very simple terms, that you show this is my safe, this is 1 crore in that, please take this key, but don't steal the money. this is where I request all, say, not only to you, if you meet 5 investors, 5 people who are investing, please keep your password ID safe. It is your personal this thing. You have to take care of it. If you don't take care of it, you have to be ready to lose your money. It is something which is, it's kind of say your safe key has to be with you. You can't distribute to, make 10 copies and distribute to everyone and then say my money is stolen. There is another similar kind of thing. What happens is there are some brokers or sometimes some, not the broker, but they have something called authorized person. So a broker cannot have offices everywhere. So they give out a franchisee or authorized person. So that person is supposed to do, is required to do marketing at certain. Now what is, sometimes some of these unscrupulous amounts, what they do is, they say ki you give me X amount of money and I will give you this much amount of money every month. So that's a fixed return. It's not an authorized scheme. And the first thing, if you're in, say, you're putting in your money in a stock market, fixed return is something which you have to expect at the last. If you want fixed return, please put it in a FD. They will give you, say, 7% FD, 7% at the, if it's an annual FD, 7% at the end of the year. Stocks will not give you a fixed return. But we get a complaint of this. So-and-so broker, he came to me, he said, you put in 50,000, I will give you 5,000 per month. So this is a fixed return and this is entirely out of the scheme. As a exchange or say even SEBI says, this kind of complaints. If you have entered into a individual arrangement with your broker, this is not a kind of. So you have to be very careful. Such things you have to keep away from such. The fundamental rule maybe is when somebody is offering you exorbitant amount of interest, beware of them. And this is a general, say, request, advice, whatever is there. Even if I was not in this position, whatever is there, even as an individual, let's be aware of that. If, say, State Bank is paying you 7% deposit rate and somebody is offering you 11%, we have to think why he is offering 11%. Because if State Bank gives you 7%, it has to earn something out of that. It will say, give it as a loan to somebody. And that loan will go at, say, 9%, just putting a ballpark figure. Because they have to have their expenses, profit, everything. They are giving a loan at 9%. But somebody is offering you 11%, at what rate they will give it to their, whoever is they are lending to? They'll surely give it at 14, 15%. And who will be these kind of people? Will they be able to service their loans? No. So the risk over there is much higher. So these are the basic things as an investor, everyone has to look. So if you are careful with your money, the number of grievances that you will face are much lower. Now there is some other kind of grievance, some very interesting kind of grievances that we have received of late. So, and that too again, if you are an aware investor, you would not have encountered that. So what happened, and this happened in a debt instrument. So typically when you are investing in a bond, in equity it is very clear. If say today the share is say 50 rupees, it will go to 51, 52, 53, it will go to 100 also. The company is going to give you a dividend not on basis of at how many rupees you bought it at 50 or bought it at 100 or bought it at 1000 rupees. If they declare a dividend at say 1 rupee per share, they will give you 1 rupee only, irrespective of whether 5 rupees, 50 rupees, 100 rupees. Okay. But in bond, they have fixed interest. Say if you hold a bond of say 1000 rupees, now bonds have a face value, and based on that face value, they will give you an interest. So if you have a 1000 rupee bond, they will say, I'll pay you on a per year, say if at 10%, so I'll pay you 100 rupees. If it's a 10% bond. For 1,000 rupees, you get 100 rupees every year. Now, there is a concept called accrual of interest. So, once you get once the interest is paid on, say, 1st of April, from 2nd of April, the bond interest starts accruing. So, say on the first day, maybe 50 paisa, the next day another 50 paisa. That keeps on growing. And it will become 100 rupees at the end of the year when the next payment becomes due. Then again, there is a concept in these bonds that they will return some of the capital. So if you have a 1,000 rupee face value, they will say after say 5 years, I will return 500 rupees out of the face value. It is not an interest. They are giving you a part of it is similar to what you prepay your housing loan. So when you prepay your housing loan, they will reduce it from your principal. So here they are reducing the principal. They are giving you 500 rupees back. The bond interest rates remain same. That is 10%. So 500 rupees face value. It becomes 500 rupees face value and you get 5 rupees as an interest. This is one reason for kind of say grievance. What they say, I used to get 10 rupees till last year. Now suddenly it has become 5 rupees. So have they reduced this thing? But they need to keep in mind that, okay, they have returned 500 rupees to you. If you have not received those 500, the company says, I have given you returned 500 but not received 500, that's a genuine grievance. But if you say, I have received only 5 rupees, even after taking the 500 back, then that's not a grievance, there's an understanding issue. Now, a very interesting issue happened in one of those. So there was one bond where they had refunded 50%, they had returned 50% of the capital. And on one of the broker websites, it so happened that the face value was showing as 1,000 rupees and the trading was happening at, say, typically bond prices. They will say if you are having a 500 rupee bond, so 500 face value, it will trade between say 500 to say some 510 rupees below, 510 rupees above. But this 1,000 rupee bond, 1,000 rupee face value which was shown on the website, this person was getting at 500 rupees, 510 and all. He is happily buying. He bought in a very big quantity. And when actually the company paid back, the issuer paid back, he got only 500 rupees and whatever interest is. The day he came back with a grievance. He has been, I have been cheated. So if somebody with say knowledge of the market or it's a hunch or say some amount of say common sense, why is a 1,000 rupee bond selling at a 500 rupee? Or say why am I able to buy a 1,000 rupee bond at 500 rupees or say around that thing? And he was aware that there is a exchange notification that this has become 500 rupees. But still, he went against that broker and said, you have cheated me. So it's kind of say, I leave it to you what kind of say interpretation you want to do. But this is a really interesting grievance that we had received of late. Now there are some kind of say instances that we have seen. They use your KYC and open an account. You have to be very careful with how your KYC documents are placed. Until and unless it is really mandatory and it's an authorized broker, please do not give any of your documents as such. These are your KYC documents, you keep it safe, like say, especially PAN card, Aadhaar card. The PAN is a mandatory requirement for your share stock market transaction. So there have been some instances where we have seen that in one case, again that's a bigger, more of a family issue, that a sister had given her documents to her brother. The brother opened an account. He also had a HUF account, opened an account, or other multiple accounts with multiple brokers, did a lot of transactions. All that transactions and all those things, it went into his personal account. Somehow, And almost after a decade that sister realized, now they are into a court case and all those things, but still that grievance is coming to the exchange. So that is another kind of transaction. This is again, and sometimes as an exchange, we receive a lot of such kind of complaints, which typically should have been handled within the family or probably in the court, because it's a dispute between two individuals. But even those land up because there is some financial transaction which has linked up with it. Now, there is another, some 2 or 3 smaller kind of say, very interesting this. So when you're, as I said, when you're typically making a lot of money, you don't see what the broker is doing. You don't find the brokerage is too high. The brokers specify that this is my brokerage chart. So if you buy so many shares, I mean, if this is your trading volume, this is your brokerage. Or there may be some who give a flat. It depends, everyone has a broker. So sometimes it happens that there is a fixed minimum brokerage which they charge. It's there in the chart, it's there in the public domain. You have the right to ask what is the brokerage and all this. Till the time everything is goody-goody, the brokerage is ignored. Once the prices start coming down, so you have, sometimes they say, I have a minimum 25 rupees is my broking. So you do a 10,000 deal, 25 rupees is nothing. But suddenly you say, no, I have to do a 500 rupees, and then 25 rupees becomes big. So these also are the kind of grievance we do receive, but these are far and few as of now. But again, what we see is whether this is within the defined parameter. If the broker has clearly indicated that this is my brokerage, and he has charged according to that, then the investor may not have a case. But whereas if there is some kind of say, they are not sticking to their broking, whatever they have promised, then yes, we can initiate some kind of action. There is another kind of, what I would say, investors come with is something called opportunity loss. So you have typically now every broker, or rather some of the larger brokers have 2 or 3 different avenues of trading. One is they offer you a mobile-based trading. There is another option called internet screen-based trading. So you log into your computer and use. Then you can call and trade. So you call up the authorized number of that specified number of the broker and you call and trade. Now what happens is sometimes for whatever technical issues, the mobile-based say trading is not available. Some issue happens, is not able to access the mobile. And they say, I couldn't sell these shares. So the whole loss, whatever, and when they are able to access the mobile-based trading, some say after a few hours or after a few days, they say the price has gone significantly down. I can, if I'm selling at that price. So on the day when I tried, it was 100 rupees. I couldn't. So when I actually could sell, it was 50 rupees. So I lost 50 rupees per share. So broker has to compensate. But in case the other facilities are available and the broker says, these are the facilities available, you can access it, and he has not tried it, he doesn't have a case. So these are some of the, cases which we have found. So whenever there is a grievance against the this trading members, now there is a mechanism of how it is resolved, which is carried out by the exchange. The first is when investor lodges a complaint with the exchange, the first thing we do is, if the complete details are available, at least substantial details are available, we approach the trading member, ask him, this is the complaint against you. What is your view? Are you, many a times, or say I would say almost 80 to 90% of the times, the broker is able to give a proper explanation, resolve the complaint. It is between the investor and broker, they resolve their complaints. And again, these complaints which come to us is say about 30-40% of what is actually the, because there are, each trading member is required to have a setup with them for grievance redressal. So the exchange is one step above that. So exchange is kind of, if they are not satisfied with the resolution by the trading member, then they come to the exchange. The exchange will take it up with the member. If the member response is satisfactory, and the more bigger satisfaction is whether the investor is satisfied or not. Because our say kind of duty is to have the satisfied investor. So if the investor is satisfied, we will close the complaint. In case it is not getting closed within say 1 month, we have a mechanism called Investor Grievance Redressal Committee, or typically we called it a GRC, Grievance Redressal Committee. So we have panel members in every center. So there are 24 centers that we are having. So spread across the country, right from, so we have somebody sitting in Jammu, somebody sitting in Kochi, Guwahati, and there may be more centers which may be opened soon. So that is there. So if, depending on the complaints, which area that complaint is, the grievance redressal member is kind of say a third party, more say mediation this thing. So we will hear both the sides, look at the facts, and say if that grievance is a genuine grievance or not. If it's a genuine grievance, say this is the amount of compensation that the broker has to give to the investor. And there is certain, again, regulatory backing to that if the broker doesn't pay that compensation, or he doesn't challenge that compensation into at the arbitration level, we have even rights to even suspend the trading of that, declare him defaulter, or declare him defaulter is again a last step, but the intermediate step is take that amount from his deposits available with the exchange and block it take it to the pay it to the investor. So next stage after this grievance redressal is arbitration, and it's a quasi-judicial process. So it typically has some qualified lawyers, or say even CACS, who have a background of arbitration. Some of them even have certifications in arbitration. They are part of some arbitration councils. So they kind of adjudicate. They will, again, process is similar, but they carry a higher weight, and their whatever they adjudicate, their order is admissible in the court. The court can actually, through the court, you can enforce that. The arbitration again is the next step. Then we have something called appellate arbitration. The arbitration, if you are not satisfied, either parties, they can go into appellate arbitration, and many a times the order the appellate arbitration may actually confirm the order or reverse the order of the arbitrator. But this is a mechanism available to both investors as well as the brokers. For investors, IGRC is initiated by the exchange. Nobody, the investor or the broker cannot ask, I want an IGRC. The exchange which initiates within, because it has to complete, we have to complete our debt. Arbitration can be initiated by either parties, not the exchange. So once it is appellate arbitration is done, it goes out of the exchange purview, then the courts come in. They have to file in the court for final resolution. So these are some of the major kind of, the grievances that we handle. There are certain grievances which we do not handle as an exchange, because it is not within our purview, neither in SEBI's purview. So one of those is if you have taken a FD from the company. So there are company FDs. So those are not within the exchange purview. It has to be taken up directly with the company's MCA, rather, Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So this was, in short, overview of the kind of complaints we handle, how you have to be careful. Ultimately, what you say, a Jagruk Grahak. So ultimately, a Jagruk investor is a smart investor. Will earn over the long term. If you look for short term, you'll probably earn one day, but lose massively the next day. So that's it. Thank you for your patience hearing. In case any questions, I'll be
Three questions. Let me just start it from one question. I believe SEBI has indicated now or provided for arbitration mechanism against companies.
Right.
Let me speak a few words about it.
Yeah. So the arbitration mechanism against the companies again is based on the same framework as the we are going to use the same framework that are being used by the members, trading members, against the trading members. But what happens in the trading members' perspective is a trading member sometimes can also initiate arbitration against a client for not settling the dues. But in the scenario of a company doesn't practically have any reason to initiate arbitration against an investor. So it is typically left only for the investor to initiate arbitration for certain set of complaints. You cannot go into arbitration for corporate governance, but for non-receipt of your shares, say entitlements, corporate benefits and all, you can go against, initiate arbitration against the companies. But incidentally, that mechanism has been in place for almost 6 months. We have not received any arbitration as of now. Because typically what happens is in a company scenario, even the arbitration is an additional facility. But what happens in company scenario is there is already a very stringent mechanism in place. The first thing is the mechanism of the company I just missed out. So first, they have a longer time, say up to 60 days to resolve the company, and within the 60 and file the ATR with the SEBI. If they don't resolve within 60 days, then a penalty of ₹1,000 per day till the ATR is closed is levied against the company, and they have to pay that fine. If they don't pay that fine, the promoter holding gets frozen. The promoter cannot deal into those. Is as good as whatever he is holding across different demat accounts. He may have 10 demat accounts. All demat accounts will be frozen. Everything that is there in his demat account will be frozen. The promoters. So just to put a very extreme example, that doesn't happen. So if tomorrow, say Reliance doesn't resolve one grievance for say, so whatever holding Mr. Mukesh Ambani holds, it will get frozen across countries. So that is, so companies are very careful. They don't want to, especially the larger ones, they are very careful that they will resolve this complaints within 60 days, and in case for some extreme reason they cannot, if the fine is levied, the fines are paid immediately. So this typically the scenario of arbitration what we are seeing. There is a mechanism available, but till date we have not seen any applications coming.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
So I am supposed to receive dividend in my electronic account.
Right.
Direct rate to my account. Now, for some reason, if it fails repeatedly, that is, instead of getting a dividend, I get a check. Is there a mechanism? So whom should this complaint be against? Is it against the company or is it against the depository participant?
The first thing you have to check is whether your bank account is correctly mapped in your deposit. The first thing that you have to check, because this typically, even this happened with me as well a long time back. So my account was with the bank. It's a 3-in-1 account. So that bank was expanding their branch networks. So what they did is they added a 0 in front of their account number. So my earlier account number, which was recorded with the depository participant, say it started with 5. Now suddenly there was a 0 in front of it. So the earlier it was not going. So that depository and the bank, they themselves started a campaign that you go and update your bank account number. So if your bank account number is updated, first thing that you need to check is your bank account number has to be updated. And if it is repeatedly not happening, it's basically a depository participants issue or at the depository level issue, because your account number, whatever the RTA or the company will pick is from your depository accounts.
especially when I'm receiving dividend in other cases, but like specific companies, liquidity frame also.
I think it doesn't recognize
That could be. So, but that has to be taken up either with the company or depository participant. Especially if it is one company, it's a company. If it is more than one company, it's a depository participant. That's the kind.
before the advent of digitalization, companies used to send a physical intimation regarding bonus, dividends and all. I think most of the companies have now stopped sending.
They are sending emails.
Now there are companies who pay 5 to 6 times dividend in a year.
Right.
In which case it is difficult to keep a track whether you receive as per their requirement. If the physical intimation is there, at least you are able to recheck. Because many times SMSs etc. do not remain on the
Right. This does happen.
Is there any regulation as far as BSC is?
More than regulation, what you can do is, so if you have to cross-check whether you received all the dividends or not, the first thing is on BSC website, you have a section called corporate actions. From the corporate actions, you can check in a financial year how many, say if they have given 5 dividends, check there are 5 dividends. Against that, check in your bank account whether you received the same number of dividends and the same amount, means prescribed amount. Say if you have 100 shares and they have given, say at one time 5 rupees, one time 10 rupees, one time. So 5 rupees, so you should get 500 rupees in your account. Have you got 500 rupees within, say that within 30 days of that declaration, the record date of this. So once if you have received, yes. So that way you can check on yours. So you.
There is no mandatory compulsion on the part of the companies to follow the
Physical is not because e-auction has been given. In fact, post 2000, since the COVID era, the physical they are typically now doing away with.
But some companies do follow.
But that's their basically, because all said and done, the postage is a higher cost. If you say sending an email in a bulk, typically costs you 1 to 2 paisa. You have an audit. Whereas in kind of say a single doc, if you have to send it physically, they have spent anything between 20 to 30 rupees, maybe more for one single. So that way, cost saving is there. And in fact, earlier they used to send, it was mandated to send the annual reports in physical form. Even that has been discounted. If you want a physical this thing, you have to opt for it. Yes, sir.
I have a basic question, but it will be useful to everybody.
Right.
I have an account handled by HSBC, and there is a portfolio manager.
Okay.
There is a software which I open using the OTP and my password. And then she guides me like whether I should sip it or I should buy something, I should redeem something. And that is how the portfolio has been maintained for several years.
Okay.
Now, since the topic is on the security and compliance or maybe complaints, can you please tell me what are the threats involved in this?
So typically, she's a relationship manager for you.
Yes, she talks and then I enter into my computer and things move.
But as long as you are taking a decision, the relationship manager may advise you, you buy this, you buy this, you buy this. The decision has to be yours.
Yeah, that is okay. Decision, good, bad or ugly is different. But is there any chance that my money can be swindled or my money can go somewhere? That is what I want to ask.
Typically now, since you are given this is a repeated name, so typically with the repeated names, they don't take a chance, typically. But again, there are some black sheep. There may be some misguided individual within this thing. There have been a couple of instances here or there. But again, you have to be very careful of what you say and keep a watch on what you get an intimation from, because after every transaction is carried out on the exchange, you have to get this. Even the exchange sends you a message at the end of the day that these are the transactions which have been carried out. So in fact, recently somebody one complaint came to us that I have not carried out any trades today, but I have got a huge this thing, big transaction day, and that transaction was carried out on a call and trade thing by some SIM spoofing. The SIM was spoofed, so that number which was seen in the call and trade desk was of this person, the authorized this thing, and that transaction were carried out. So he had all evidence that I have not traded and all these things. So that got settled by the broker. The broker again was a reputed broker. They handled it that way. They refunded whatever the transaction they nullified. But if it was some chota mota broker who couldn't have handled this, it would have been a big mess. But first thing is, for such kind of thing, go with a genuine this thing. You have to look at whatever broker you are going to, whether you can trust that broker. And not only that individual sitting in front of you, but that whole institution as a whole. If you find something, it's better move away from that, get to some better. Yes, sir.
One question that's regarding the shares which are moved by the trading member, the daily trade. Okay, like for there is a 3-in-1 account.
Yeah.
So when you put a trade, you sell the shares presumably. Then the shares on the same day they move to his margin, his pool account.
Right.
Correct? And then it goes for pay. Now typically we are coming into T+2 from
It's a T+1.
from T+1 from tomorrow.
Right.
I'm talking about general the scripts which are in T+2. So on a T day, now T day also happens to be the record date for the purpose of dividend. Dividend I'm talking not only the counter action. So on that day I trade, I sell my shares. Now when I sell my shares, typically I am entitled for the dividend.
Right.
Because my shares are supposed to move on a T+1 or T+2 day.
T+2.
But what the broker does, in order to keep that margin compliance, the shares move on the same day and those go to the pool account.
Right.
And when the company pays dividend, when the download is taken, my name doesn't appear.
It goes into.
So obviously the dividend goes to the broker.
Right.
Broker in turn distributes the dividend to the respective shareholders. Now the issue here is TDS. TDS credit goes to the broker.
Right.
And I don't get it. So how this query is resolved by the exchange?
So typically now this matter has to be handled by the broker, because ultimately he gets a credit to his account, so he has to give a cross credit to other his. This was a issue which did come up, but
Many complaints occurring on this
yeah,
issue.
but
And brokers are actually not taking any responsibility.
actually because we got the broker to handle that matter, because we did get that the kind of query that is. But now typically what is happening is shares are not moving out of your this pledge replace mechanism that we have.
No, I have sold the shares, no. So on a T day, he moves my shares because his system, he moves the shares on the same day.
Right.
And I'm not blaming the broker, all big brokers do that.
Right. Now that I
Especially that 3-in-1 kind of thing. So you can guess which are the brokers and the companies, the banks which we do. And they say that this is our system, we move the shares on the same day for the purpose of risk or compliance, whatever they say.
right.
But as a shareholder, I am entitled for dividend.
Absolutely.
And if there is a TDS, it should be in my name.
Right.
So how exchange resolve these queries?
So we
I
have
will not get a credit.
yeah, I agree to that this thing. In fact, that's why I said we got incidentally we got one complaint against that in one case. So then that member actually then issued some compensation to that against that TDS whatever it is. So that is a genuine issue, but typically now that probably will come down much.
But how will it come down? Broker will say, I want to move my shares as per the system on T day.
T-day.
It will not come.
So again,
As a shareholder,
yeah.
I am not concerned with your process.
I think basically
I am entitled for dividend.
right. No,
So it will not happen in other corporate actions. It's a bonus.
it's only on dividend case.
But here in dividend, the company will do TDS for the company, not for the individual.
It will give a TDS only to the
I
person who is
have
working.
by returns also.
Even dividend is paid to the broker.
And the broker transfer it to you.
So
They don't even transfer that.
that is a different issue. They do that.
No, I have several complaints, they don't.
They don't do.
Nah.
Now
And
there
then
is,
they just dilly-dally the complaint.
there is another aspect possible that say, as an individual you may not be within the TDS bracket.
But there are many who come.
Just let me
I'm
come.
telling you a genuine case, a person who comes under that.
Now I will take this as a feedback because this is something which is running at the back of my mind, but this is something which you'll have to handle in a more at a systemic level, not at a this.
Especially if I buy some share one day before the ex date, the broker transfers it after the record date to my account. So he gets the dividend.
To add to him that genuinely, brokers, lot of brokers, especially big brokers, they do ask mistake.
So is there any manual
No, this-
in this?
This is a systemic issue which will need to be handled. So I'll anyway take this as a feedback. We'll have to work out at a much bigger level because it has many kind of not only exchange but even somewhere whether the depositories will come in clearing corporation.
What should happen is depositories pass on the then cost position of the to the company. They should, so that sensitive position is done, they do a cutoff at some point in time. Ideally, broker should move the shares into their account for the purpose of paying after that then cost.
After 12 o'clock, simple.
Yeah, that's one of the suggestions. No, that is one of the way which we
Let
can.
me add something to that.
Yeah.
Such a typical query. The broker has come with a response. That broker has written to the company that these shares are held on behalf of various investors. So the TDS should be passed on to those investors. And the company simply ignored. He said, we are not concerned. You do whatever you want.
Yeah,
The company says, it is your process which is faulty. We are going to take the blame post based on that.
Yeah, because
corporate has to
the
be
company is a right
So
on
the
its
exchange
part.
has to intervene and resolve it.
Don't try and say the shares to be dividend is because.
Why should I? You cannot deprive. You cannot deprive.
That is not something which anyone will advise. So the system, it has to be handled at a systemic level. We'll have to work out
Broker has to
something.
be stated. No one else. Broker cannot say this is my system. You improve your system. Like Mr. Dhruv Patil said. You do that post 12 o'clock.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, typically, what they do is, as of now, whatever I am aware of the settlement process, what they do is whatever obligations are there, those are all cleared, and after the whole transactions, corporate, whatever transactions are completed, online, offline, whatever, after that they take a final position at the end of the day, and that is given to the RP.
And meanwhile, my shares are transferred. So I don't
No, that's a very kind of
typical.
this thing. This has to be handled at a much, it's a systemic level issue, I would say.
Another question, does this advance brokerage has any legal standing? Many brokers ask for advance brokerage and then they give some concession in brokerage rate.
That is between you and the broker.
Correct.
What
So if you-
Whether they can later say you have not done so much business, so your advance brokerage has to be.
No, it's practically say it's an arrangement. You
I
can.
think you get one free that.
No, but whether this has any legal standing?
No, practically it depends. It's an arrangement that you have arranged. I would say agreed upon with the broker. If you say no, I don't want that free part. Typically, what happens is if you want a free part, you end up buying what you don't need. So better pay the normal price. Whatever you use, you pay. That was this. Yes.
When I get a dividend in the bank account, there is a brief description for that dividend. A lot of short forms are used and a lot of text is used. You really have to apply intelligence to understand what that dividend is about and
For which company you are.
So why the description is so brief? Because the memory storage is
No, that I think-
reasonably cheap.
No, that I think no, that's a banking issue. No, I think that is another point which I'll provide.
Description has to be very specific.
At least the company name has to be proper.
Dividend yield.
Sometimes you say, I don't have shares of this company, I don't want to
Right, sometimes.
Company like Tata, there are different companies starting with Tata. Then you have to apply.
No, right. And this is a genuine issue. And in fact, because I do have some shares, as of now I'm not allowed to buy in the open market. I can only buy in IPOs at the or say rights issue. These are the only avenues available for me as an exchange employee. If I have to sell, I have to take a permission and I have to ensure that it has been bought some 6 months or before that. So that restriction is there. But that kind of issues we do face everyone. That I think either I'll need to check how the instruction come to the bank. If the bank receives the instruction from the RTA in much detail and the bank also accepts that and gives it into the description, maybe that problem will get resolved.
Like
That, okay,
Tata
the company,
Chemical, Tata Communication.
TC,
How will I?
TCL, right.
TCL.
And especially if you have both in your portfolio.
Second question is, it's mandatory for all registered companies to submit their annual reports results to BSE.
Right.
And it is published and everything is available on BSE. In most of these documents, a lot of text is used.
Right.
And at times I saw in one of the annual reports, one sentence was almost for 120 words. It was going on 5 lines. And you really have to read it 3 to 4 times to understand what that sentence is about. So can BSE take some initiative to make it simpler? Because nobody reads this document. That's a challenge. And if the annual reports are 300 pages, and especially our reading, it's just terrible.
No, I agree. In fact, as in my introduction itself, I was in the listing part. And significant time I have spent on that. So there were some approvals that we had to give, and in the resolutions itself, we had seen a lot of times that it is written in so means.
What language?
No, that language itself is indecipherable.
One of my contacts told me that it is done deliberately so that people should not.
No, you don't understand. So you got answer.
That again, this thing I agree with. I am fully on your side in this matter. So what they write is sometimes you don't understand.
Can BSE take some initiative? Force them to use simple English, plain English, take text blocks, and definitions, especially when the IPO gets released. There are standard definitions on first page.
Right.
Why can't it be frozen? Okay, those definitions are industry standard definitions.
No, in fact, this is because I have to take it as my personal issue also. The standardization, there are a lot of standardization which is actually happening at the background that is template.
Or even table of contents has to be standardized. What should come first, what should come second, what should come third. So that people are encouraged to
It
do
should
that.
be summary in full.
Yes,
Right.
That will be best.
In fact,
That will be best.
In fact, one of the initiatives which I did in my earlier role, that is the XBRL. So that has brought in a lot of standardization. Yes, we started with a smaller this thing. Like say typically the shareholding pattern or say financial results and all. So those are more of a structured this thing that we are getting. Earlier, even in financial results, if you see, each company had its own format of financial results. Its own. So if you have 5,000 companies, there are some practically 4,000 to 5,000 different types of formats. So now that has been rationalized. There are hardly 6 designated formats. That is again due to the difference in industry and accounting standards. But that has been rationalized. We have been working on that whole exercise. Because we have to pick up the lower hanging fruits first, that is the financial results. And these are because financial results come at more frequency, 4 times a year. And now you have more detailed financials coming in. So you have a standalone, you have a standalone consolidated balance sheet, cash flow. So in during the half year or annual year, there are 6 parts of a financial result that get submitted if you are a larger company. So consolidated as standalone, plus for each of both you have to give the P&L, balance sheet and cash flow. So that kind of standardization we have started. It's a very complex issue. I agree that what you are saying, that language is a complex, it's very difficult to read. Most of them are being written because it should not be written. And if you compare 2 or 3 annual reports, you will probably find that what he has written in 2020, you will find in 2025. Oh, same pair.
Yeah.
Like this, you can take initiative. Most of the readers, they are going to read this document online, and they are not going to print it. But those PDFs are made for print copy.
No, in fact, now there was one initiative that we had. In fact, we have put out circulars as well. That this text has to be machine readable. So when we say machine readable, you can actually search for some content.
Yeah. So it should not be scanned.
That's what.
Yeah. Another challenge is there are a lot of features in online. You can have links.
Right.
You can have table of contents where you can just click and go. There are bookmarks concept in PDF.
Right.
All these things are reasonably easy to use from a technology perspective. The documents are probably meant for print copy, so they just don't bother.
No, now many of the, I've seen at least some of the larger companies are actually preparing it as an internet first kind of. There are new formats of even annual report formats have also gone. Something called integrated reporting is coming. So one of the Tata companies, I believe Tata Steel or somebody, they have this integrated report. So they give a kind of summary of what their businesses are. So probably one of those, you can try reading that.
Can BSA take initiative in designing templates?
Simplification, right? Language simplification and this. That I think will surely take up. Because again, as I said, even I sometimes have read this, and it is even after spending so many years in this, sometimes we find what is written, kya likha hai, and then we go back to them, you simplify this, what you want to say.
Is it possible that after the phrase is complete, the legal phrase, in bracket if you have gist, what is trying to say? Just immediately.
But a summary kind of.
Even the whole annual report itself, or rather the communication itself needs to be simplified. That is what the crux of. Yeah, because I have seen the other side also. Because we as a listed company have to prepare these annual reports also. So the people who are preparing are also hard pressed. So if I ask them, ye karo. So I understand you as an investor. I understand them as a company secretary also. Because they are typically so many, and the deadlines are so pressing. So if you say they have to complete the whole process of annual report and all by say 30th of September, the top company have to complete it 1 month prior to that. And during that time, they have 2 financial results to be submitted, 2 quarterly filings to be. So there are a lot of things which go on. So it's not that I am supporting this thing, but yes, I hear you on that. Whole thing has to be simplified. It has to be understandable to a common investor. That is a very valid feedback. In fact, this is something you have put words in my kind of say to my thoughts, I would say. Because ultimately, if you are preparing a 300-page document and ensuring that no one reads it, it is not worth preparing that 300.
You want to just say a few words about defaulters claims.
Okay. Yeah, this is a very sensitive issue, defaulter claims. So what happens is, when a typically a broker goes defaulter, like say, I had taken the name of Carvey. Now there are few brokers which have gone defaulter. And what happens when these go defaulter? Typically, the investor has say, he has bought some shares, sold some shares, and the settlement is pending. Because the broker has not settled those positions. So for that cases, the broker has no money or no shares or whatever is there, and the investor is left in a lurch. I have put in so much money, just because the broker went defaulter, why should I lose money? So for that purpose, we have mechanism of what we call the investor protection fund. For when such default happens, there is a process, defined process, which is there available on our website. So the investors can lodge a claim with the exchange, and we will say compensate those investors up to a limit of 15 lakhs. So if you're, it's irrespective of whether it's just cash transaction or stock transaction. So you have bought or sold. If that position is not settled, it will be compensated from the investor protection fund up to a limit of 15 lakhs.
1.5.
1.5. So that is typically a small investor is covered in that 15.
One thing I say hearsay, I don't know exactly about carving. Somebody known to me when he faced the issue about carving, he was told that his shares which were lying in the margin for earlier more than 3 months time, he didn't get any compensation. Is it so something? I don't know. Is there anything in the default?
See, typically now what happens is now this is a compensation. It is not like say I am return, because practically if you see investor protection fund is a contribution from various. It's like say insurance. So we are not returning everything what you are losing. We are trying to kind of say reduce the loss to your future.
Maybe pro rata or something.
Not pro rata. There are certain claims. Like say if you have a small claim of say 10,000 rupees, that will get fully covered.
100%.
But if your claim is at 25 lakhs, you will get only 50 lakhs. So there
No, my question is not on that. His holding was in margin account, which was there in the Karvi for more than 3 months. That was the reason he got from the exchange, and that's why he didn't get compensation from the investor protection fund also. So is there any something rule in that, or
See,
because typically we have to flush either quarterly or monthly now?
no, that has started now. That has started now.
So
It has become compulsory. In fact, that one about 2 months since the October quarter, what has happened is whatever your cash position is there. Now, anyway, stocks are there in your pledge for whatever margin amount you have given to the broker.
So that cannot be
The
touched.
shares are in your own account and it is pledged against margin. That is a specific. So your shares are there with you only. It is not going. Only thing is the pledge will go. But whatever cash you have given to the broker, now that has to be returned by the broker by default, and it has to be supported by a bank transfer. And this has to happen every first Friday of a quarter. Or if you have opted for a monthly this thing.
That will resolve all these kind of.
This kind of issues get resolved in that. The only risk remains is within that 1 month or 3 months, if you go default. So the instance that you are saying,
Karvi something happened.
no, that instance that you are saying, because that is probably with us, because we had a rule that if you have the 3 month, there was some position and you are not settled for 3 months, and then you have not complained to us that if you have lost this. So you have kept the money with the broker for months together, and then when you lost that money,
You're coming to us.
you even didn't come within the limited period. Say, you know that okay, you are it's there for 3 months, is not refunding you. You should come immediately or say maximum 1 month. But you didn't come for the 1 month, you didn't come for the next 2 years also. So that was one condition that we had in our this thing. So those claims were rejected, but now we are reprocessing that. So those kind of say, if again other criteria remain that, so if your transaction is beyond 3 years, so you say did a transaction in 2010 and now you compensate for that, it is not done. If your position has been settled, you can't claim for that because you already received the money. And then there are some cases that you have bought the shares, you have yet to pay the money to the broker and you claim for that. Then that's called a debit transaction, even those are not.
I request Mr. Udit Anand to give a vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I take this opportunity to thank Mr. Pai from Bombay Stock Exchange for such a, what I can say, the presentation in well-articulated manner, resolving almost all of the queries and some of the issues what we raise. I hope he'll, as an exchange, will take. And it was really a wonderful session on this Sunday morning. It was worth being here to have understood the lot of nuances which, as a common investor, we make mistakes and we need to improve. Also appreciate the initiatives taken by the exchange and SEBI to eradicate all those issues which could have been avoided earlier. But now I think with the place system in place, we'll have a lot of peace of mind. And again, learning for all of us that if the broker doesn't pay our money within 1 month or 3 months, it is our duty to insist and get it cleared. Otherwise, we'll be the victims. And as he rightly said in the beginning, what we have to be Jagruk investor, right? So that is in our interest that. Sorry? तिजोरी की चाबी खुद के पॉकेट में. So that is the learning, Mr. Pai. Thank you for all that. Before I conclude, I just want to make one announcement. As you are aware, on the 1st of Feb, the union budget will be presented in the parliament. And in that respect, we have a session on 5th of February at 11 o'clock in the morning on the budget analysis by Mr. Purvesh Shelatkar, who is institutional head of Monarch Capital. And the program will be held at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning. Thank you.